Allan Grice at speed.
Grice was probably the hardest man that I've ever raced against. But if you treated him with respect, he treated you with respect.
We try and outbreak him. They are flying, but Grice is going deeper.
He was the sort of guy that took no prisoners, whatever it took to win races.
Oh, using a little bit of the marbles on the outside
and the inside.
He was always had his back against the wall because the factory team was the factory team and he was trying to beat the factory team, and on occasions he did.
Crowd absolutely berserk. How does it feel? Two-East champ, Allan Grice.
It's the best feeling I've had since 1986.
Wait for the cheers on the top of the mountain. All those V8 followers. Go, Grice, go, they say.
And one of the guys that would always find a way past, you know, his overtaking was probably the benchmark.
Going to make a move down the inside here at Grice. They come down, Grice won't get away.
He's a guy who did it his way.
The old Grice, a charger, he's always right. Any incident you got involved with, it wasn't his fault.
Oh, he's gone. He's hit the bank and gone up there. I think that's Grice who's...
You can't do anything about that. We're just knocked out of the race by some galoot.
Well, my memories of Grice was sort of the black hat brigade, you know, he was sort of the bad guy.
Oh, Harvey goes into the side of Grice.
He was a bit of a pain in my backside on many occasions because he was always very competitive.
Grice and Moffat dicing. You can see how close he is now, right on the tail, and he'll make a move to get by them both.
The Allan Grice mandate was how hard he was as a racer.
Wheel up, spoiler scrapes, pushing hard, and this man knows how to push hard.
Here's Grice again coming off the second turn, working the back straight. The Foster's Oldsmobile with Australian Allan Grice going through up into second.
Really, we came here to learn about NASCAR and to qualify and everything from here on as a bonus. And look at what he did when he went to do the World Championship overseas. He sort of held the flag up for us in Australia.
Grice coming through the bottom turn, holding a very tight line as he exits that corner.
Grice was very, very good at getting the best from the car on the day.
Checkered flag at the ready, and the Aussie privateer, the battler, cracks it for the Hardy 1000 at Mount Panorama, and he's done it.
Everyone almost was privateers back then, and he always gave it his best shot, and he got the just reward there at Bathurst one time, and he earned it, that's for sure.
You ought to know me, I never give up hope.
Hi everybody, thank you very much. Welcome again to the Shannons Legends of Motorsport. We're at Bathurst at the National Motor Racing Museum again, and surrounded by some extraordinary machinery once more, and looking forward to another chat with a very special Australian motorsport legend. Our muscle car men are with us once again as well. Aaron Noonan and Mark Osler will join us very shortly. Our special guest today is twice a winner at Mount Panorama, just over that hill. He's contributed so much and driven so many different vehicles. Would you please welcome our special guest, Allan Grice. Thank you very much. Grab a seat. Thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure.
Really looking forward to having this chat because you've just done so much over such an extraordinarily long period of time. And let's look at Bathurst in the first instance. You always were a force to be reckoned with here, and to some extent you were the original enforcer. Long before Russell Ingall grabbed that brand, you were the man, weren't you? You were the guy that they all had to contend with, a hard, tough privateer making it his own way.
Yeah, well, I didn't have a lot of help, so I had to sort of make some of my luck.
But you made it well, didn't you? 2 wins and a whole lot more.
Yeah, it was, I always had the attitude that if I kept coming back and being competitive, that I would win it. And I can recall, he reminds me of it from time to time, a mate of mine, Mick Ryan, who used to be into tyres, driving me back from the circuit, and we'd been very competitive, but something had broken, something had happened. And my attitude was, well, thank Christ. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, that's just another one gone. I'm closer to winning it.
You had a special affinity with this place over a long period of time, always a contender, always spoken about. We always knew and understood what you're up to. In fact, we've got some great vision from the 1978 shootout to enjoy right now.
Well, the track has dried at Mount Panorama. Allan Grice, who was first car out in the wet, now goes on to slick tyres and tries to equal Moffat's time.
He won't be pushing it very hard to do that. Amazing performance by Moffat, 2:21.59, but Grice is pushing as hard as he possibly
Grice
can.
has caught a double hand of lock here. He almost into the wall. Just, oh, goodness me, almost rode the back of the car off on the wall. He is really trying.
Another couple of millimetres there, Grice.
Yeah, have a go, you mug.
Very close to that exit wall up at Forest Elbow. Let's roll all the way back, though, because it was 46 years ago that you had your very first run here, and it was in, of all things, a Fiat 124. Do you remember?
Yes, I do.
Tell me about it.
Well, I could run round the track quicker then, I'd figure. But it was part of the learning curve. I learnt the track, you know. Came away at the end of that weekend knowing where to turn left and where to turn right. It was a step.
Step in the process. And you came back the following year in an XU1, Cessnock Motors XU1, which I think is still lurking around today. That's a very different car to a Fiat 124.
Yeah, the first time we came back here in the Tirana, we qualified 13th fastest, but we were on the reserves list. And in those days, people would just take the car up, not a truckload of engines and all that sort of stuff. So I think we were 8th or 10th reserve. And a lot of people pull out on Friday, a lot of people pull out on Saturday, and some work all Saturday night and still pull out Sunday morning. So I was actually sitting in the car with my helmet on and my harness at the pit gate, waiting for one more car to pull out on the Sunday.
Is that right?
To join the grid.
Unbelievable.
So they started the race with number 13 vacant.
First recollections of the place, when you first turned up here, and I mean, it's nothing like any other racetrack. You're a young bloke, you're in a Fiat, whatever the case may be. Just describe what it was like to drive at this racetrack for the first time.
Well, we've all seen it on television 100 times before you come. Not perhaps 100, but you know basically where it goes. You have time also to walk or drive around the circuit, you know, days before, and you're allowed to do that at that stage. So you basically know where it goes to, but you don't know where it goes to at that sort of speed. So you've got to learn a bit.
You've got to learn an awful lot, that's for sure. We're going to take a break on the Shannons Legends of Motorsport. When we come back, we'll talk about Allan's BMW years, and we'll go off to the break with a wild moment, 1979, an A9X Tirana at Amaroo Park, upside down. Have a look at this.
Grice making a move on the inside, but he's not going to go up the grass.
Can one less slip on?
Has made good start. It just seems to run out of air a bit. Oh, there's a nice run
Grice
there.
and O'Brien are continuing their slight little altercation of the previous race. Can...
oh, he's gone. He's hit the bank and gone up there. I think that's Grice who's gone up.
How am I doing, Mike? Have you got any tips for me? Have you been watching the technique?
Yes, it's been very good. I don't think I can fault any of it, Allan.
Back up here, that's 162 mile an hour. Back to fourth, third, second, a turn left at the sand drop, not in the bloody thing.
1981, Allan Grice hard at work in a BMW, Conrod Straight. No chase in those days. Notice no fence or next to no fence, and that BMW sounding very, very sweet. 1980s, in the early phase there, you were responsible for bringing, as I recall, BMW into the sport, and important manufacturer who laid down a strong pedigree in the sport in the subsequent years. Tell us that story.
Well, to be fair, Frank Gardner and I both were involved in getting BMW involved, and it went sour.
As in the BMW relationship went sour, or the you and Frank relationship went sour, or both?
All of the above.
All of the above. Tell us why.
My old mother told me if I couldn't speak well of someone, it's best not to speak of them at all. Next.
That's going to be the end of that, that subject line. All right, you did a lot of testing and racing at Amaroo Park. I met you in the early days.
Yes.
You had your driver training business out there as well. You won the AMSCAR series, I said in the intro, in 1982. This is a little racetrack like many others, particularly the Sydney-based guys. Everybody loved it. What were your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. Lakeside also. Lakeside was a very good... If you could set your car up for Lakeside, it'd be pretty right for Bathurst. And Amaroo was similar. Very good corners there. The surrounding hardware was pretty hard, but I had the biggest shun of my life testing there.
Really?
Yeah.
What happened?
Going over the top at the end of the straight, throttle jam wide open, straight into the bank. The engine broke the gearbox pushed the tail shaft into the diff. And I was a passenger while all that was going on. I didn't enjoy it.
No, it doesn't sound like much fun to me. Let's go to 1982 and that Amaroo AMSCAR series where in the Recar car, Allan is doing a bit of winning.
Past the halfway mark in the 25-lap race, and the constant pressure from Grice paid off. One chance presented itself, and he slipped through under Johnson going into Winfield Corner and took command.
Grice down on the inside, and he has got Dick Johnson straight underneath Dick Johnson, and Allan Grice go through, but he's all tail skating as well. Johnson roams up on the outside.
Grice went on to drive a heady race to the checkered flag with Johnson second, Bond third and Brock fourth, although Brock, with his first round win last meeting, maintains the series lead.
And Allan Grice comes back to win at Amaroo Park Raceway in the second round of the CRC Better Brakes AMSCAR Series.
Fond memories. Back to this as a topic at Mount Panorama, and you had your one and only pole here in 1982. Stringing together a special lap at Bathurst, getting it right, seeing a number in those days up on a board or in the modern era up on a dashboard, it's a very satisfying thing. Can you describe that?
Yeah, a really quick lap is one where at the end of it you're not sure whether to kick yourself in the backside because you didn't feel that you were hard enough through that corner, but the stopwatch says you were. I guess that means that I tended to overdrive.
I can remember you saying to me at one stage early in the game that motor racing is as much a foot skill as it is a hand skill.
Yes.
Expand on that for the audience.
Well, I say to young blokes that ask me the question still, how to go quicker, and I try to explain to them that irrespective of how much titanium or carbon fibre or trick components they've got, at the end of the day they've got 4 little bits of rubber at speed, only that big. 4 times that is 4 patches of rubber. So everything they do with this upsets that. So if you get a mind picture of this poor little bits of rubber, 2 of them at the front, and every time you go like that, it's like smacking the bag. Do the best for you, you know? And you see this, and it's not. If you need that amount of lock to go around that particular corner, and the rest of the steering's with your foot. And if you leave the tyres alone, A, they're quicker for you, and B, they'll last a lot longer for you.
You're always looking for an angle for performance, which is part and parcel of this game. And we've got something to go to the break here in a moment where you've got a crew of guys chasing you down the pit lane to refuel the car. Do you just want to expand on it before we look at it?
Well, the brakes were marginal in those days. We needed a quick pit stop because it was a splash and go. And if I'd come in red hot and stopped, there's every chance we could have cracked a front rotor. So we determined, on the go, we didn't practice it. We determined on the radio that I would not stop. And I guess that's what you're leading to.
Exactly what we're leading to. Here it is.
Well, we don't have to make another stop, so we've all got our fingers crossed and we're looking good.
Yeah, well, let's watch this stop, Larry. It's an important one. He's moving. He hasn't refueled the car properly. Grice is underway. The churn is still in it. That is 1 minute penalty. One churn of fuel goes in. I thought, in fact, there may be some penalty. They're not supposed to be moving in the pits.
Allan Grice, and he's got a lot of hard work ahead of him here as the green flag drops on his flying lap. Not only last year's pole winner, but of course the first man to lap round here in excess of 100 miles per hour average.
Allan Grice at speed. Oh, using a little bit of the marbles on the outside.
And the inside. Wheel up, spoiler scrapes, pushing hard.
It's quick, but I don't think it'll be as fast as some of the other times. Here's Grice, number 6, the STP car across the line to take the checkered flag.
2:18.96 for Allan Grice.
which I might mention was good enough for third, so second row of the grid. But I made the remark when I first saw you there after the comments that you just made about line and length and your hands and your feet, that very deliberate steering, very cautious and calm turn in, and yeah, very impressive.
Feet working like this.
Yeah, dancing flat out. It brings us to the roadways relationship and cars, the Harrington family. You were part and parcel. In fact, I think it was the year before that you achieved the 100-mile-an-hour lap, or 160-kilometre lap speed average around Mount Panorama, right next to us. This was a great period, and in fact, this particular year, you finished third. I actually got it wrong before. You qualified 8th and finished third. So, so a very fruitful period.
Yes, and that all started, well, actually the recar thing started with Allan Brown, in that right at the sour end of the BMW activity. Les Small was actually building a car for Allan Brown, and he, unbeknownst to me, part of the deal that Les had made with him was that I'd do some laps to make sure that the car was right. And I did those laps, and they were under the record at Amaroo. So Allan Brown, being Allan Brown, said, you're going to drive it next weekend, Grice. And I said, well, okay, hang on. He said, all right.
Deal.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I can distinctly remember is you driving that Chev Monza.
Yes.
Sports sedan. Very fast car, very powerful car, as many of your peers did in those days as well, driving sports sedans and indeed sports cars. In fact, we've got some material here from Lakeside, one of Allan's favourite tracks, in the Chevy Monza. Have a look at this.
Allan Grice was having his first drive in the powerful Chev Monza and made a tentative start, trailing Tony Edmondson's Alfetta and the fast-starting Porsche 935 of Rusty French in the opening laps. Edmondson, a former winner of the GT title, opened a handy lead, although Grice moved into second on lap 3 and set off after the former title holder from Tasmania. Eager to win his first outing, Grice powered his way to the front on lap 6 and never looked in danger of defeat, opening a 10-second gap in as many laps. French lost ground when he spun while attempting to take second place from Edmondson. Back in the field, Mark Trinowith in a Jaguar XJS held fourth place ahead of Brian Thompson's Mercedes. With Grice well in command, French caught Edmondson in the final laps, and as Grice took the checkered flag, the Porsche and Alfetta touched, spinning off the track, eliminating both French and Edmondson.
It's handy when those blokes do that, but that was an important win for you, and that was a great car. Do you recall it?
That was a great car, yeah. That was... I didn't get on all that well with Pat Purcell, who was a mechanic for Bob Jane, and he built that car. And I first drove it at Lakeside, and I didn't have his phone number because he wasn't an acquaintance, if you like. But I made the point of finding out his phone number and rang him and said, Pat, we've had our differences in the past, but I want to tell you, that's the best car I've ever put my backside in without changing a thing. It's a really good car.
And you can see that.
And he went, oh, right, Grice.
And you can see it in the results. Let's jump 2 years now and get into 1986, because apart from what we'll talk about here, there was also the European Touring Car Championship Assault. Now, this was bold. This is taking on Europe, which was logistically and financially a monstrous task, batting away sort of the whole Team Australia notion. What drove you to do that? How did you put it together, fund it and all the rest of it?
Well, I thought that looking at the regulations, and I'd been over and had a look at some Group A, I thought that the Commodore would be competitive, first thing. And then I figured out a plan to form the Australian National Motor Racing Team. And then you've got to go to the government to call anything the Australian something or other. So the Minister for Sport, John Brown, announced at the Royal Automobile Club in Sydney that this team had formed to do the Group A Championship the next year. The plan was for people like Alan Jones, Vern Schuppen, Bondi, I'm pretty sure, Dick, some others were going to go backwards and forwards and do one race, and I was to do all of them. And the cars were being built. Brock also agreed, and we had sponsorship organised with Foster's and with Qantas, and the cars just about finished building, and Brock suddenly announced that he was going to go to Europe himself with the mobile cars. The sponsors then thought, what's this Grice bloke talking about? Because Brock was on this driving list, so they pulled the sponsorship. So we went anyway.
And racked up some bills, no doubt.
Oh yeah, Graham Bailey came. It was a lifelong ambition of his to drive something in Europe. And Yokohama, I developed the radial race tyre for Yokohama in Europe.
And successfully so.
Successfully so. It was the best tyre at Bathurst in 1986. And I did all the testing for that at different tracks in Europe.
We'll get to that because that's to come on the Shannons Legends of Motorsport. Grice's performance here at Bathurst in 1986, and we'll go to the break and have a look at him in action in the European Touring Car Championship in Germany at Hockenheim.
Going through to take the lead, Allan Grice, putting the pressure on John Louis Schlesser and certainly Anders Olofsson. So Grice leads round 3. It's the same as round 1 at Monza and round 2 at Donington. The Australian privateer showing Europe's best that the Commodore is a... All those V8 followers. Go Gricey go, they say.
Seems as though Allan Grice may have a right rear tyre rubbing on a guard as he uses all the road at McPhillamy, the fastest man in the lead up to Hardy's Heroes with a 2:16.16. Gets a little messy through the S's. Will Gricey take another pole? The fastest man to do the 100-mile-an-hour lap in a Group C car and did the same yesterday in a Group A car. He's setting the pace.
Having quite a crack at it there, the Chickadee Holden Commodore, same year as that European Touring Car Championship campaign, and that obviously got you onto the front row of the grid, qualified in 2nd position and set up what was going to be a very special day for you.
Yeah, it was great. Everything's got to be right to win Bathurst, and everything was right with that car. The tyres, the engine, the power, the grip, the handling, the fact that I'd been doing a 500-mile race about every 2nd or 3rd weekend. I was pretty tuned as well.
You've driven some wonderful racing cars, Grice, over a long period of time. We're very privileged to have one of your very special racing cars behind us right now, and the man to be able to explain all about it joins us. Here's Mark Oslo.
What we're looking at here is the backup car that Roadways ran at the 1984 Bathurst 1000 for Allan Grice and Steve Harrington. It's got some real history, this car, because it's the same car that 2 years previously Gricey put on pole position in that 100-mile-an-hour lap that the boys were talking about earlier. What a fantastic car. I just loved these cars, the end of the Group C era. It ran from 1973 to 1984, and this was the ultimate expression of that formula. They just look like cars looking for a fight. Big wheel arch extensions, big front and rear spoilers, barking exhaust, just fantastic looking cars. And under the skin, the classic muscle car menu. Holden's 5-litre V8 engine, about 400 brake horsepower with 2 big Webbers on top. And these cars were very light, only 1,250 kilos, and that equated on Conrod Straight. They could go very, very quickly. With the 308 diff these cars used to run at top speed, 175 mile an hour or 280 clicks. They were simple, they were basic, they were light, and they were very, very fast. It's so great that this car has been preserved in this original condition because it not only reminds us of a unique period in Australian touring car history, but it was also these cars in this category that made Allan Grice a national touring car star.
They were wild cars, weren't they? Marco was right, you know, the big flares and all the noise, and they were genuinely muscle cars back in the...
Angry cars.
Angry cars, yeah. Fun to drive?
They were then. They were the state of the art then, you know. 5 years later, get back into them and they're horrible.
Let's get back to 1986. So notwithstanding that you'd qualified very well and you'd been doing a lot of mileage, which certainly helped the cause, you were just strong that day and you did a heap of miles in the car, progressing through the field. In fact, I'd like to show another clip and we'll continue the conversation.
Allan Grice, the leader, meanwhile, as he goes up to the top towards Castrol. Just look at Grice spread-eagling the field as he heads across the top of the mountain. And listen to the fans, they just love it. The number 2 car, full head of steam and running away at this stage from Gary Scott and the number 15 Nissan Skyline through Castrol Curve. Dropping down into the right-hander. Through Bridgestone Corner, Allan Grice. And there gives you... You've got a great view now of the top part of the mountain as the field wends its way down towards Valvoline Corner.
That's the aerial view of the top of the mountain here, and here's Grice coming off it for the second time, and still with that commanding lead and doing it very, very well. A man determined after his exploits in Europe through this year.
And Grice, this was in an era where there were no maximums and minimums. However, that was about to change in the regulations, so you just did a pile of miles that day. I can distinctly remember it. Graham Bailey, who co-drove with you, did some mileage, but man, you would have been pretty worn out at the end of all that.
No, we won, so it wasn't.
It didn't matter. It didn't matter, but it was a huge effort. I mean, to spend... It was one thing to drive the cars solo back in the 500-mile era.
Yes.
There's another thing to do that many Ks in this more modern era, the 1,000K race.
Yeah, but even though it's Bathurst, even though it's that type of mountain that requires so much skill, if you can't find a place to relax, and going up the mountain and coming down, if you can't, and you've got to get a practical, physical key going to relax, to make yourself relax. Your mental energy's too high and you just tire yourself out. You couldn't do that sort of laps.
Much of the time privateer, there were occasions where you did drive for factories, but most of the time in your career, as I said at the top of the show, you were the privateer guy. Was it frustrating through the period of the 70s and 80s having to be the guy that was always up against the might of the factory? The HDT always had they had a lot of resource.
Yeah, it was difficult. Of course it was difficult. I know that we didn't get a lot of help from the factory ever. We actually got more help from some of their technical people through the back door, like Eddie Matthews, who'd help us with
engine guy.
Yeah. But I mean, it is what it is in life, and that's the way that was the status quo. And I've never ever tried to go to somebody else's sponsor or pinch something like that. That's never been part of my makeup.
Take a break now on the Shannons Legends of Motorsport. On the other side, we'll talk about the 1990 victory with Allan Grice and the Holden Racing team, and we'll go to the break with a little scrape in the cutting up at turn 4 between Allan and John Harvey.
Now working their way up the straight. Oh, Harvey goes into the side of Grice. I think maybe Grice was claiming the corner, but...
No, Grice has a problem. He had a problem before. He slowed quite... is it possible to slow rapidly? Anyway, he slowed, and that's really what happened. It really caught Harvey out totally.
Beverly Hills is full of familiar faces.
She looked like Marilyn Monroe.
Look at the Holden fans out here on the right as you come across the top of Skyline. You could probably hear the applause from here.
I can. There's some happy boys and stick heads up here.
Got time to give them a wave?
I'll be doing that.
Fans on top of the mountain. Here he comes.
They love the Commodores.
Oh, look at them. You've made their day.
It's a big moment in the history of the sport. Allan's second win, 1990, partnering with former British touring car champion Wyn Percy there for the Holden Racing team, and that was significant and to a degree against the odds, because you have to understand that in that period of the sport we were all living in Sierra world in those days effectively.
Yeah, and the thing was about the Sierras was that they weren't supposed to have adjustable boost, but maybe they did. And they'd cruise away, wind the boost down and just have a nice, pleasant afternoon. And we figured that if we could hammer them, and that car was maximum revs all the way until we started to get light on fuel towards the end. And they had to run with higher boost, and they all most of them blew up one by one by one.
It was a great victory, and again, against the odds to a large degree. Nobody expected. I think I was in the team at the time, and even within the team, it was something of a shock, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, but the car had brilliant brakes. But even so, and I drove again the following year for them. So I drove twice for the Holden dealer team, and the second year we won the class. Remember there were two
that's right.
New category?
Yeah, the first of the V8s.
We were second outright and first in class, and the previous year won. So I drove for them twice and had 2 firsts and a second, but they still wasn't good enough to get a Guernsey.
That's another story for another program. It's time to find Aaron Noonan once again. He's got some great stuff from the vault, and it's a double shot.
Well, Neil, the first little item I've dug, I've had to rewind back, 1979. It's an interview at Allan's home in Sydney where he talks about what he's going to be like when he gets old. And then the second piece is a bit of skullduggery. It's a bit of standard Grice thinking outside the square in the top 10 shootout at Bathurst in 1988.
Well, we've been married 2 years. I've been involved with motor racing with Allan for 5 years. But out of that 5 years, Allan hasn't contributed anything to the household. I'm afraid the finishing off of the house will have to be done after Bathurst, but we'll just have to wait and see.
I'm very proud of the fact that although I own a lot of race cars and trucks, I don't own a lawnmower. And the only lawnmower that I hope to own, that's part of the plan, is one that hooks onto the front of the wheelchair, and when I'm 95 I might mow the lawn, not before.
Allan Grice doesn't miss too many opportunities for a one-upsmanship. He goes very wide there and decides to turn right.
He's gone to Bathurst. There's a roar of disbelief there from the crowd. Grice has disappeared off screen altogether.
OK, Grice has lined it up. That wasn't a mistake, this is intentional. He's now gassing up the Commodore because he'll hit the green flag quicker than any other driver. Here he comes up, takes the green flag, and Grice is underway.
So a couple of things to discuss there, Grice. A, watching you come from the Pizza Hut downtown and trying to do a hot lap from the wrong direction to get a pole position, which was extremely inventive. And the earlier clip we showed with your wife Christine and you speculating about being 95 and doing nothing around the house, she's tipped you straight in.
She was right there and she's right now.
Which is probably okay. Tell me about the bizarre decision to run on the bottom of Conrod Straight, turn right, not left, go down, flip around, come back and try and attack pit straight with more pace to try and find an edge. Who thought of that one?
I did. I thought it would be quicker. I gave a little practice in practice, and I actually came out of there with more revs on than I would have if I'd gone down to the end of the Conrod and turned left. So, but I must have buggered it up somewhere else. I gave it a crack.
But it was worth a try.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things about the 1990 race, if we just stay on that focus for a moment, was that the boys on the Ford side of the equation continued to throw everything at it, despite some of the cars whittling away to the side along the way. You may recall that Dick Johnson tried to jump into the secondary Shell Ford Sierra, but not with success. His backside was too big for the seat. Then he had to jump back out and Paul Radisich had to get in because the idea at the last stop was to try and hunt this man down. It didn't quite work.
And here comes the 18 car.
Jeff Allan coming into the pits. Who is going to take over? It will be Johnson. Now the choice of tyres, whether wets go on or the slicks go back on. Looking like a pad change. Let's go to Johnny Brady.
Actually, Steve down here, Mike. So as John said earlier with the hold and stop, this one is just as crucial.
Did you see what happened?
Johnson, look, it's running 24, 25 seconds at the moment, this stop. And it looks as if Johnson hasn't been able to fit into the car. And so it looks as if it's going to be Radisich who will have to drive the car to the end of the race.
Well, they tried and failed to make a driver change there, but you made the point as we were watching that tape item that it didn't really cost them because at the time they're doing a pad change anyway.
Yeah. 54 seconds for a pad change.
To the break now and celebrate the victory of the 1990 Bathurst 1000 with the Holden Racing Team entry with Allan Grice. And after the break, we're going to talk about NASCAR with this man. Stay with us.
Under the bridge, coming down to the final corner. Checkered flag time. Crowd absolutely berserk. Last turn, checkered flag. How does it feel? Tooheys champ, Allan Grice.
It's the best feeling I've had since 1986, I'm going to tell you.
Well done, son. You've driven superbly.
Thanks, mate.
Oh, the old Grice. You know, a charger, he's always right. Any incident you got involved with wasn't his fault. He's probably sort of, I suppose he was one of those guys that punched above his weight. He did a super job in the cars he had.
I have a lot more time for Allan Grice than a lot of people do because he helped me immensely in my first year at Bathurst, 1985. I was new to touring cars and new to the circuit, and it was pretty daunting, and I went to Allan after the first day of practice and asked him if he'd give me a hand, and he did. He drove me around, he showed me lots of pitfalls I could get myself into, and it made a lot of difference to me, so I'll always do everybody that I can.
Grice and I have always got on well together. We've done some overseas driving together, would you believe? Grice was probably the hardest man that I've ever raced against, but if you treated him with respect, he treated you with respect.
He was probably one of the only drivers that if you were on the outside of him going around a corner, you knew you weren't going to come out of the corner. Whereas people like Jim Richards or even Peter Rock to point that, and most of the others, you could go side by side, you know. So you just never went around the outside of Grice. That's what I'm trying to say.
He was always had his back against the wall because the factory team was the factory team, and he was trying to beat the factory team, and on occasions he did.
Well, my memories of Grice was sort of the black hat brigade. You know, he was sort of the bad guy, and Grice was very, very good at getting the best from the car on the day. He drove it very straight. He was very, very good braker, and one of the guys that would always find a way past. You know, his overtaking was probably the benchmark.
People are very mixed with Allan Grice. You either love him or you hate him. Not an easy guy to get to know, and you know, but a very, very fast driver.
He was the sort of guy that took no prisoners, whatever it took to win races, and look at what he did when he went to do the World Championship overseas. He sort of held the flag up for us in Australia, and good icon of motorsport.
Comments from your peers?
Yes.
Interesting. Mixed bag.
Mixed bag.
Mixed bag.
That's all right.
That's part of life. I want to change the tempo now and stop and consider something other than Mount Panorama and touring cars and talk about NASCAR, because long before Marcus Ambrose took the bold decision to go and tackle NASCAR, you did, and so did Dick Johnson. So let's have a look at this, because initially some of what we saw with Grice was happening here in Australia, and then there was also some stuff in the US. But first of all, to the call to Thunderdome.
And Allan Grice already up and making a challenge on Bobby Allison. Down through the tri-oval, the crowd has gone berserk here as Grice goes down on the inside looking for racing room, but Allison is an old hand. He'll hold out. Here's Grice again coming off the second turn, working the back straight. The Foster's Oldsmobile with Australian Allan Grice going through up into second as Michael Waltrip comes in and back out of the pits. And we take race cam now from Allan Grice's car, the Foster's Oldsmobile, as he heads down the back straight. He's tailing Neil Bonnet, car number 75.
Amazing stuff, and other than the fact that they've got a steering wheel, a NASCAR bears almost no resemblance to the cars that you spent 99.9% of your life driving. So my hat is off to you for being competitive and being able to basically make one of those things dance like you did.
Yeah, they're very agricultural, but that was the secret of them. But I always say that a road race car is, if it's 90% right, it's pretty good and you can handle it. That's very nice. But if a NASCAR is 98% right...
Black art, isn't it? I mean, it's just trying to understand how to get those cars to work right. And the other thing that I find truly remarkable is that you, as I alluded a few moments ago, it's not just a question of running around at the Calder Thunderdome, but you went off and did what's now become the Coke 600, the Charlotte 600. You went and played the NASCAR game at the highest level in their backyard. That's a project.
And qualified.
And qualified, which you shouldn't have been able to do.
No, they start 40 odd cars, there would be at least 75 turn up, and they cut them during the week, and there were some names and teams went home, and we made it. Yeah.
Here it is. Enjoy this.
It's only after we get here that everybody tells us this is the hardest race in the United States to qualify for, but really really, we came here, as we said before, to learn about NASCAR and to qualify, and everything from here on is a bonus. So we do one lap in the race, it's a one-lap bonus.
Just under 200,000 spectators turned out in searing heat for Sunday's 600-mile sprint race. Georgia's Billy Elliott had pole in the Coors Thunderbird, with veteran Bobby Allison alongside in the Miller Pontiac. The Foster's team had changed engines in Grice's 03 Oldsmobile. In had gone Graham Crosby's qualifying motor, and the 86 Bathurst champ was ready for some real traffic racing from the outside of the 18th row.
Into turn one they go, and it's Bill Elliott and Bobby Allison side by side. Allison showing a lot of strength as Elliott tries to pull away from him, and now Elliott as they come out of turn two.
Grice's early charge took him into the top 20. His pit stops were smooth and incident-free, and he seemed content on just finishing in the top 10. On lap 155, the Bob Jane Foster's team challenge was over. Grice had given the race his best shot, but a differential failure had ended his chances.
That's a real achievement, Grice, to get into that field, and niggly things threw you out, but you were clearly competitive, and that in itself is a statement.
Yeah, I had to go through rookie school and all that sort of thing to get a licence to...
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Listen, I want to draw everybody's attention, folks, 11 years in Parliament as a member of the Queensland Government. That's worthy of a round of applause in its own right. Because to be successful in motor racing, you clearly have to be a politician, and you applied that.
Yeah, but I think there's more politics really in professional sport than there is in politics, and I'm probably uniquely placed to make the comment.
Are you happy with all that you've seen and the things that we've discussed and some of what's been achieved over the years? It's a huge amount of work.
Yes, and it just reminds you of so many other things and so much more. You know, it's it just goes on and on, doesn't it? Motorsports has its own life, its own entity, its own supporters and friends, and it's a pretty wonderful world, motorsport.
Thank you for the entertainment, and congratulations on the wonderful results over many, many years. Please thank Allan Grice, our special guest. Thanks, Grice.
Thank you all. Thank you.
That wraps us up for another episode. Join us again very soon for more from the Shannons, Legends of Motorsport. Bye for now.
I think the 80s were some of the best racing that we ever had, and certainly the vehicles were spectacular.
Kevin Bartlett, throw is over. Would you put your hands together, please, for Mr. Kevin Bartlett? Tony Longhurst.